Quarter 4, weeks 3 to 4, module 2, biomolecules. Week 3, carbohydrates and proteins. There are carbon-containing compounds which are essentials to life. These compounds are called biomolecules. These biomolecules are the following: carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, and nucleic acids. Carbohydrates and lipids are generally made up of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Proteins and nucleic acids and some derivatives of carbohydrates and lipids also contain nitrogen. For this part, we're going to have the short quiz. Please look at your answer sheet. The instruction here or direction: analyze each question carefully, then choose the letter of the correct answer. Write the letter of your answer inside the box. Question number 1. Which of the following is not a major source of protein? A, fish, B, egg, C, milk, D, vegetable. Which of the following contains the most lipids? A, banana, B, champurrado, C, olive oil, D, cheese. Which of the following is a correct pair? A, glucose to disaccharide, B, sucrose to monosaccharide, C, starch to polysaccharide, D, triglyceride to polysaccharide. Question number 4. Which is a correct pair of an example of protein and its function? A, enzymes speed up reactions in the body and eventually use up in the process. B, collagen provides strength and flexibility to connective tissues. C, actin and myosin supplies amino acid to baby mammals. D, hemoglobin helps regulate blood sugar levels. Question number 5. Which of the biomolecules contain other elements aside from carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen? A, carbohydrates, lipids, B, proteins, lipids, C, nucleic acids, proteins, D, nucleic acids, lipids. That's the end of the short quiz. Let's proceed with our first topic called carbohydrates. Carbohydrates, they are molecules made from aldehydes and ketones containing numerous hydroxyl groups. All carbohydrates contain carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. The general empirical structure for carbohydrates is CH2ON. They are the most abundant organic molecules in nature and also referred to as saccharides. The carbohydrates, which are soluble in water and sweet in taste, are called sugars. This is the structural formula of the carbohydrates. We have the aldehyde group, oxygen, carbon, and hydrogen. We have the hydroxyl groups, which contain hydrogen, carbon, and hydroxide. Let's go to the functions of carbohydrates. Living organisms use carbohydrates as accessible energy to fuel cellular reactions. They are the most abundant dietary source of energy, 4 kilocalorie per gram for all living things. Here are other functions of carbohydrates. Carbohydrates, along with being the chief energy source in many animals, are instant sources of energy. Glucose is broken down by glycolysis or Krebs cycle to yield ATP or adenosine triphosphate. Serve as energy stores, fuels, and metabolic intermediates. It is stored as glycogen in animals and starch in plants. Carbohydrates are intermediates in the biosynthesis of fats and proteins. Carbohydrates aid in the regulation of nerve tissue and the energy source for the brain. In animals, they are an important constituent of connective tissues. Carbohydrates that are rich in fiber content help to prevent constipation. Carbohydrates may be classified into the following: monosaccharide, disaccharides, and polysaccharides. We go first with monosaccharides. From the prefix mono, which means one, It is the simplest sugar and the basic subunit of a carbohydrate. These are white solids at room temperature. They have polar hydroxyl groups in their molecular structure. They are very soluble in water. The most common monosaccharides are glucose, also called dextrose, fructose or fruit sugar, and galactose, sugar in milk. Disaccharides. They consist of two monosaccharides that are chemically combined. The sugar that we use to sweeten coffee is a disaccharide. It is also called sucrose or table sugar. When two glucose molecules are combined, maltose is formed. Another important disaccharide is lactose or milk sugar. Lactose is made up of a sugar called galactose and glucose. Maltose or malt sugar is an intermediate in the intestinal digestion or hydrolysis of glycogen and starch and is found in germinating grains and other plants and vegetables. Here are the structural formula of a disaccharide. Since sucrose is a combination of glucose and fructose, here is glucose and this is fructose. Lactose is a combination of galactose and glucose. This one is galactose and one is glucose. For maltose, which is a combination of two glucose monosaccharide, here are their structural formula. The third one is called polysaccharides. Are polymers containing numerous monosaccharide monomers. The three common polysaccharides are starch, glycogen, and cellulose. Starch is the chief storage form of carbohydrates in plants and the most important source of carbohydrate in human nutrition. Starch is made up of two types of polysaccharides, amylose, which is a coiled or helical structure, and amylopectin, which is branched. Plants make starch. Glycogen is a polysaccharide that is similar to starch because it is also composed of alpha glucose units. It differs from starch since glycogen shows a higher degree of branching and is a polysaccharide that is made by animals. Glycogen is the major carbohydrate storage form in animals and corresponds to starch in plants. It occurs mainly in liver up to 6 to 8%, wet weight, and muscle where it rarely exceeds 1% of wet weight. The glucose molecules in cellulose chains are arranged in such a way that hydrogen bonds link hydroxyl groups of adjacent glucose molecules to form insoluble fibrous sheets. These sheets of cellulose are the basic components of plants. Here's the structural formula of a simple starch. A section of cellulose showing bond between glucose molecules and the structure of a glycogen molecule. We go to the second biomolecule, proteins. Proteins are polymers of amino acids. They have many functions in the body, one of which is found as structural materials in hair, nails, and connective tissues. They are made up of the elements carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and sulfur. Enzymes are proteins that act as biological catalysts. Egg white, fish, meat, and cheese are foods rich in proteins. They are the second most common molecules found in the human body after water and make up about 10% to 20% of the mass of a cell. Amino acids are the building blocks of proteins. Of the 20 amino acids found in human protein, only 11 can be synthesized by the body and 9 have to be supplied by the foods we eat. These 9 amino acids are also called essential amino acids. Adults only need to obtain 8 of them. Valine, isoleucine, leucine, lysine, methionine, phenylalanine, threonine, and tryptophan. The 9th amino acid, histidine, is only essential for infants. Your body doesn't store amino acids, so it needs a regular daily supply of these essential building blocks. Non-essential is a slightly misleading label because these amino acids actually fill essential roles. But since they are synthesized by your body, they're not an essential part of your diet. Of the 11 non-essential amino acids, 8 are called conditional amino acids. Here's the structural formula of an amino acid. We have the amino, the hydrogen, the carboxyl, and the R group, which is a variant. So let us go with learning tasks, test for carbohydrates. We can detect the presence of carbohydrates in food samples based on color reactions after adding a certain chemical. Iodine solution or tincture of iodine and Benedict solution are used to food samples to test the presence of carbohydrates. Lugos iodine solution or tincture of iodine changes from yellow to blue or black in the presence of starch. If the substance that you test contains sugar, Benedict's solution will change color. For positive tests, Benedict solution changes from blue to green, very small amount of reducing sugar. Yellow, higher amount of reducing sugar. Orange or brick red, highest amount of reducing sugar. The change in color is due to the formation of the brick red precipitate cupric oxide. For this activity learning task, here is the procedure. This activity will be using given data as assumed results from the activity. The tables below contain food samples that after a certain chemical was added into it, the color of each sample changed or color reaction. Given the color reaction of each food sample, decide whether the sample tested positive or negative. Take note of the given positive color reaction for a specific test. Use this as your reference. Let's look at the answer sheet for table 1. You only need to write the positive symbol if the color is blue or black. If negative, you have to write the negative sign. So for table 2, the same procedure. We have to write positive sign if it is positive, negative if it is negative. So the color indicator, it is positive if it is the color is green, yellow, or brick red. To be able to answer the 2 questions, you have to underline your answer. Based on the table, on the data table, answer the following question. Number 1, based on the results in the test for starch or carbohydrates, which food samples tested positive? So for number 1, there are 3 food samples that tested positive. For number 2, based on the results in the test for reducing sugar or carbohydrates, which food sample tested negative? So you have only 1 food sample that tested negative. So let's proceed with learning task 2. Let's categorize. On your answer sheet, given the structural formula, complete the table by providing the needed information regarding the different biomolecules. In here, the direction is encircle the letter of your answer. For the biomolecule, you have only to choose whether it is carbohydrate or protein. For the building blocks, you have to choose from 4 choices. A, sugar, B, starch, C, fiber, D, amino acid or amino carboxylic acid. For the classification archetypes, for the first structural formula, A for monosaccharide, B for disaccharide, C for polysaccharide. For proteins, classification according to structure, You only need to choose either A, simple protein, B, conjugated protein. So after learning task 2, we go with the assessment for learning task 3. On your answer sheet, you have to write the letter of your answer on the space before each number. Number 1, which of the following groups are all classified as polysaccharide? A, sucrose, glucose, and fructose. B, maltose, lactose, and fructose. C, glycogen, sucrose, and maltose. D, glycogen, cellulose, and starch. Number 2, amino acids are the building blocks of which group of biomolecules? A, proteins, B, carbohydrates, C, lipids, D, nucleic acid. Number 3, which of the following is the major function of carbohydrates? 1, structural framework. 2, storage. 3, energy production. Letter A, 1 only. B, 2 only. C, 3, 2 only. D, 1 and 3 only. Number 4, in which organs are glycogen stored in the body? A, liver and spleen. B, liver and muscle. C, liver and bile. D, liver and adipose tissue. Number 5, which of the following biomolecules contain carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen? A, proteins. B, carbohydrates. C, lipids. D, nucleic acid. So that ends week 3.